My brother defended his girlfriend after she gave my schizophrenic ex, who once chased me with a knife through our neighborhood, the time, date, and location of my baby shower, plus ultrasound photos and a detailed timeline of my pregnancy, including which hospital I'd deliver at, so I went no contact. That was 18 months ago. She's serving 5 years for conspiracy to kidnap my baby, while he sits outside churches on Sundays, hoping to glimpse the niece whose first words, first steps, and first birthday he'll never know. Jake and I split up years back after he had a major mental breakdown and ran after me through our whole neighborhood holding a large knife. They put him in a psychiatric hospital. Following this, his entire personality changed, and he developed delusions, hallucinations, and paranoia that the people were out to get him, which never went away. Also, a large part of his paranoia revolved around me controlling people around him and thinking I was trying to make him look crazy. He was let out of the hospital after some time, and I took responsibility for him. He was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia. I did everything I could to be there for him. I went to all of his mental health appointments and stayed up at night to make sure he didn't leave the house alone. Even though we were no longer together, I cared for him. We kept talking for a little while as friends. I think the entire time we kept contact, he assumed we would get back together at some point. When I started a new relationship with my current partner, Sam, Jake had a really bad psychotic episode and threatened both of us. He accused me of cheating on him with Sam before we broke up and sent both of us intense messages threatening he would turn us into pasture for his bloodhounds. Following this, I cut all contact with Jake. The only slight connection I have to Jake is my brother's girlfriend, Jess. Her and Jake have been friends for years and have maintained their friendship. She knows the entire background to our relationship and never chose sides. Later on, I got pregnant with Sam's baby in January and was 3 months pregnant. I had just told my family and close friends about the pregnancy. I told everyone to keep it quiet as I didn't feel ready to publicly announce it. Less than 24 hours passed after telling my side of the family, and I received a phone call from Jake. He had found out I was pregnant and left a voicemail saying he would be filing for custody of the baby. Obviously, he was in a psychotic episode, so I ignored his calls and let his family know that he had reached out to me. By this point, it had been over a year since we had even spoken. He has no idea where I live or work, so I'm not worried about him showing up physically to confront me. I knew the only way he could have found out would have been through Jess. I called and confronted her about it, and she admitted to it. She was extremely apologetic and said she didn't think it would matter. She thought he would be fine with the news and said he deserved to know. I was upset by this, but I hadn't explicitly told her not to tell Jake, so it could have just been a mistake. I forgave her, but made it very clear that she shouldn't tell Jake any more information about me or the baby, and she agreed. I didn't hear anything from Jake for months. Last weekend was my baby shower. Sam and I had the baby shower together. It was more of a party than a traditional baby shower. We hired a function room at a bar and invited 80 people to come celebrate. We were all having a great time until I saw Jake standing at the bar, looking around. I managed to slip away without him seeing me and grabbed security to get him escorted out. I watched as security approached him and asked him to leave. He was furious and started yelling. He spotted me and tried running to me before being grabbed by security. He ended up biting one of them. He was yelling and demanding to talk to me before he would leave. Sam and several friends went over to him to try and talk him down, but it only escalated. He screamed at Sam, claimed that he was the baby's real dad, and that we had never really broken up. At this point, I left to hide in the ladies' room until my mom came to let me know Jake was gone. He had eventually left after a little more screaming. I was mortified and we cut the baby shower short. I couldn't stop crying. It's now been a few days and I confronted Jess. She is the only person who would have possibly told him the location and time of the baby shower. I wasn't as kind on the phone with her this time. She admitted to telling him and apologized, but said, how could I keep this a secret from him? I was furious and told her that she would no longer receive any news about me or the baby and that I would cut her out of my life. My brother called me after and asked me to forgive her. He knew she was wrong, but he didn't think he should also be punished for what she had done. He knew that by cutting her out, I also wouldn't be telling him any news about the baby. In part, he thought I should blame Jake for his reaction and not Jess, that she hadn't known he would show up. The damage was already done, and I should let it go. I hung up on my brother and threw my phone on the couch. My hands were shaking as I paced around the living room. Sam watched me from the doorway, his jaw clenched tight. He'd heard the whole conversation. She did it again, I said, my voice cracking. She told him about our baby shower. She knew exactly what would happen, and she did it anyway. Sam crossed the room and pulled me into his arms. I pressed my face against his chest and let myself break down completely. The stress of seeing Jake at what should have been a celebration, the fear of what he might do next, the betrayal from someone who was supposed to be family, it all came crashing down at once. After a few minutes, I pulled back and wiped my eyes. Sam handed me a tissue from the box on the coffee table. We need to call the police, he said. File a report about what happened at the bar. I nodded. We'd been putting it off, hoping maybe we could handle this without getting law enforcement involved. But Jake had bitten a security guard. He'd made threats. He was claiming to be the father of our baby. This wasn't going away on its own. The next morning, we drove to the police station. The officer who took our statement was sympathetic but honest about our options. Since Jake hadn't physically harmed me, and the bite happened to the security guard, not me, they couldn't do much beyond documenting the incident. The security guard would need to press charges separately if he wanted to pursue anything. What about a restraining order? Sam asked. The officer pulled out some paperwork. You can file for one, but it's not guaranteed. The judge will want to see a pattern of harassment or credible threats of violence. I thought about the voicemail Jake had left months ago, threatening to turn us into pasture for his bloodhounds. I deleted it in a panic, not thinking I'd need evidence later. Now I regretted that decision. We spent the next 2 hours filling out forms, documenting every interaction with Jake over the past year. The officer said they'd add this to his file and suggested we start keeping detailed records of any future contact. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with a text from Pete. Can we please talk? Jess is really upset. She never meant for any of this to happen. I showed Sam the message. He shook his head. Don't respond. Not yet. But Pete kept texting. By the time we got home, I had 12 messages from him, each one more desperate than the last. He was begging me to reconsider, saying Jess was crying and hadn't eaten since our phone call. He said I was being too harsh, that family should forgive family. That evening, while Sam was making dinner, I heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, I saw Pete's blue Honda in our driveway. My stomach dropped. Sam, I called out. Pete's here. Sam came out of the kitchen, still holding a spatula. We watched as Pete got out of his car and walked up to our front door. He knocked 3 times. We don't have to answer. Sam said quietly. But I knew my brother. He wouldn't leave until we talked. I opened the door but kept the chain on. Sarah, please. Pete started immediately. Just hear me out. There's nothing to discuss, I said. Jess put me and my baby in danger. Twice. She didn't know he would show up. She thought he had a right to know about his friend having a baby. His friend? I laughed bitterly. Is that what she told you? Pete, Jake thinks this baby is his. He's delusional. He threatened us. And Jess knew all of this. Pete ran his hand through his hair. A gesture he'd done since we were kids when he was frustrated. Look, I get it. I do. But cutting her out means cutting me out too. Do you really want that? What about when the baby comes? I'm going to be an uncle. Don't I get to be part of that? The guilt hit me hard. Pete and I had always been close. When our parents divorced, we'd stuck together. When I was in college and broke, he'd sent me money from his first job. When Jake had chased me with a knife, Pete was the first person I'd called. This isn't about you, I said, my voice softer now. This is about keeping my baby safe. From Jess? Come on, Sarah. She made a mistake. 2 mistakes. But she's not dangerous. Jake is the problem here, not her. She enables him, Sam interjected, stepping beside me. That makes her dangerous to us. Pete's face hardened as he looked at Sam. This is a family matter. I'm family too, Sam said calmly, and so is our baby. Pete was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Jess wants to apologize in person. Will you at least consider meeting with her? No, I said immediately. I can't trust her, Pete. She promised me she wouldn't tell Jake anything else, and she broke that promise. How can I believe anything she says now? Because she loves you, Pete said. We both do. We want to be part of your life, part of the baby's life. Please don't shut us out. I felt tears building again. Pregnancy hormones weren't helping the situation. I need time to think, I said finally. Please just give me some space. Pete nodded slowly. Okay, but Sarah, I'm not giving up on us. You're my sister. That means something. After he left, Sam and I sat on the couch in silence. The dinner he'd been making sat forgotten on the stove. Neither of us had an appetite anyway. Did I do the right thing? I asked eventually. Sam took my hand. You're protecting our baby. That's always the right thing. But it didn't feel that simple. Over the next few days, I found myself second-guessing everything. Pete had always been there for me. Was I really going to cut him out of my life because of his girlfriend's actions? Then Thursday came, and with it, another call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sarah? It was Jake's mother, Linda. My heart sank. Hi, Linda, I said carefully. I'm so sorry to bother you, dear. I heard about what happened at your baby shower. I'm mortified. We've been trying to get Jake back into treatment, but he refuses to go. I put the phone on speaker so Sam could hear. I appreciate you calling, Linda. The thing is, she continued, Jake's been saying some very concerning things. He's convinced the baby is his. He's been researching custody lawyers. I thought you should know. My blood ran cold. Has he actually contacted any lawyers? I don't think so. Most won't take his calls once they realize, well, once they talk to him. But Sarah, he's fixated on this. He has pictures of you from social media that Jess sent him. He's created this whole fantasy about your life together. Jess sent him pictures? My voice was sharp. Linda paused. I'm sorry. I thought you knew. She's been keeping him updated on your pregnancy. Photos from your social media, details about doctor's appointments. She means well, I think, but I hung up. I couldn't listen to another word. Sam was already pulling up Jess's social media on his phone. Sure enough, there were screenshots of my posts, shared to her story with captions like, so happy for my sister-in-law, and can't wait to meet the little one. We need to lock down all our social media, Sam said. Make everything private. I nodded, but I was thinking about something else. If Jess had been sending Jake photos and updates this whole time, what else had she told him? Did he know what hospital I was planning to deliver at? Did he know my due date? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every car that drove past made me tense. Every sound outside had me checking the locks. Sam tried to reassure me, but I could see the worry in his eyes too. Friday morning, I called my OB's office and explained the situation. They immediately put a security note on my file and assured me that no information would be given out over the phone. They also suggested I consider delivering at a different hospital than originally planned, just to be safe. The reality of having to rearrange my entire birth plan because of Jake's delusions and Jess's betrayal hit me hard. This was supposed to be a happy time. Instead, I was living in fear. That afternoon, while Sam was at work, I heard a knock at the door. Through the peephole, I saw Jess standing on my porch. She was holding a gift bag and looking around nervously. I didn't open the door. Instead, I texted Sam. Jess is here. He responded immediately. Don't answer. I'm coming home. But Jess kept knocking. Sarah, I know you're home. Your car is in the driveway. Please, I just want to talk. I stayed silent, watching through the peephole. After a few minutes, she set the gift bag down and pulled out her phone. My phone rang a second later. I didn't answer. Sarah, please, I heard her say to my voicemail. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I need to explain. Jake, he manipulated me. He made me think I was helping. I see now how wrong I was. Please let me in so we can talk. She stayed on my porch for 20 minutes, alternating between knocking and sitting on the steps. Finally, Sam's car pulled up. I watched as he got out and approached her. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could see the body language. Jess was gesturing wildly, clearly upset. Sam stood with his arms crossed, shaking his head. Eventually, she picked up her gift bag and walked to her car. Sam waited until she drove away before coming inside. What did she say? I asked. More excuses, Sam said. She claims Jake's been calling her constantly, threatening to hurt himself if she doesn't give him information about you. She says she was trying to keep him calm. Do you believe her? Sam shrugged. Does it matter? Even if it's true, she chose his well-being over yours, over our babies. He was right, but it didn't make me feel better. That night, Pete called again. This time, I answered. Jess told me she came by, he said without preamble. Sarah, she's falling apart. She knows she messed up. Can't you see she's trying to make things right by showing up at my house uninvited? I snapped. That's exactly the kind of boundary crossing that got us here in the first place. She brought you a gift for the baby. She spent hours picking it out. I don't want her gifts, Pete. I want her to stop giving my stalker ex-boyfriend information about my life. She's not doing that anymore. How can I trust that? How can I trust anything she says when she's lied to me twice already? Pete was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, what if I promise to make sure she doesn't contact Jake anymore? What if I monitor her phone, her social media? Would that be enough? The desperation in his voice broke my heart, but I had to think about my baby. I can't take that risk, Pete. I'm sorry. So that's it? You're really going to cut me out of your life? Miss out on being an uncle because of this? You're choosing to stay with someone who puts my baby in danger, I said. That's your choice, Pete, not mine. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. Sam rubbed my back gently as I set the device aside. The next morning brought an unexpected development. Our doorbell camera alerted us to movement on the on the porch. When Sam checked the footage, we found a thick envelope wedged under our doormat. Neither of us had heard anyone approach. Sam retrieved it wearing gloves. We were taking no chances. Inside was a handwritten letter in Jake's distinctive scrawl, pages and pages of rambling text. His handwriting deteriorated as the letter progressed, becoming increasingly erratic. He wrote about our secret meetings that never happened, about messages I'd supposedly sent him through news broadcasts, about how the baby was conceived during a night he'd imagined we'd spent together months after our actual breakup. The most disturbing part came near the end. He'd drawn a crude map of what he believed was our daily routine. Morning walks I didn't take, doctor's appointments at clinics I'd never visited, even a work schedule for a job I didn't have. It was completely fabricated, but the level of detail showed how much time he'd spent constructing this alternate reality. We immediately drove back to the police station. The officer from our previous visit reviewed the letter with a deepening frown. This time she seemed more concerned. "This shows clear escalation," she said. "The fact that he knows your address and is leaving items at your home changes things. I think you have grounds for a protective order now." She helped us file the paperwork, but warned the process could take several days. In the meantime, she suggested we vary our routines and consider installing additional security measures. That afternoon, while Sam ran to the hardware store for new locks and security cameras, I sat at the kitchen table making lists. Hospitals to contact about delivery options, friends who needed to know about the situation, security measures for the house. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi Sarah, this is Christy from your prenatal yoga class. I got your number from the instructor. I wanted to check if you're okay. There was a man asking about you after class yesterday. He said he was your husband, but something seemed off." My blood turned to ice. I hadn't been to prenatal yoga in over a week, having skipped the recent classes due to stress, but Jake had shown up there looking for me. I immediately called the yoga studio. The instructor confirmed that a man matching Jake's description had come by, claiming to be my husband and saying I'd forgotten my water bottle. When she'd offered to call me, he'd quickly left. She'd found the whole interaction strange enough to warn her students. This meant Jake was actively searching for me, visiting places he thought I might go. The fabricated routine in his letter wasn't just fantasy, it was a hunting pattern. Sam returned home to find me packing a bag. "We need to stay somewhere else for a few days," I explained, showing him Christy's text. His face went pale. We checked into a hotel across town under Sam's name, bringing only essentials. That evening, as we sat on the unfamiliar bed eating takeout, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Honey, I just had the strangest call," she began. "Someone claiming to be from your doctor's office called asking to confirm your address for delivery of medical supplies, but they already had the wrong address. Some place on Maple Street? Maple Street. That was where Jake lived with his parents." "Mom, that wasn't my doctor's office. That was Jake or someone helping him. Did you give them any information?" "Of course not. I told them I'd have you call back directly." "But honey, how did he get my number?" I knew exactly how. My mind flashed back to Jess's social media posts. She'd shared photos from the baby shower, tagging family members who'd attended. My mother's profile wasn't private. It would have been easy for Jake to find her contact information. Over the next 2 days, the attempts to locate me intensified. My cousin received a Facebook message from Jake claiming I'd been in an accident and he needed to reach me urgently. 3 different friends got calls from someone pretending to be from a baby registry company asking to verify shipping information. My workplace received multiple hang-up calls. Each incident was documented and reported to the police. The protective order was approved, but serving Jake proved difficult. He wasn't at his parents' house when officers went by. His mother claimed she hadn't seen him in days. On the 3rd night in the hotel, Sam woke me gently at 2 a.m. "Don't panic," he whispered, "but there's someone in the parking lot who's been sitting in their car for an hour, engine running." We peered through the curtain. The car was positioned with a clear view of our room. We couldn't make out the driver in the darkness. Sam called the hotel security while I dialed 911. By the time police arrived, the car had gone, but the officer who responded ran the partial plate Sam had noticed. It came back to a rental agency. When they pulled the records the next morning, the car had been rented by Jess. I felt sick. Even after everything, part of me had hoped I was wrong about her involvement, but here was proof that she was actively helping Jake stalk us. We switched hotels immediately, this time going through a friend who booked the room in their name. I called the detective handling our case and informed her about the rental car. She said they'd bring Jess in for questioning. That afternoon, Pete called from an unknown number. I'd blocked his regular one. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Sarah, what the hell? The police just showed up at my apartment looking for Jess. They're saying she's involved in stalking you?" She was sitting outside our hotel room at 2 a.m. Pete, in a rental car, watching us. Silence. Then, that's not possible. She was home with me all night. The rental agreement had her name on it, her driver's license number. Someone must have stolen her identity or something. Sarah, she wouldn't do that. Just like she wouldn't tell Jake about my pregnancy or the baby shower. Pete, open your eyes. You're being paranoid. This pregnancy has made you— I hung up before he could finish that sentence, but his words stung. Was I being paranoid? No. There was a rental agreement with Jess's name on it. That was fact, not paranoia. The detective called an hour later. We spoke with Ms. Jess at her workplace. She claims she rented the car for a friend who doesn't have a credit card. She says she had no idea what it was being used for. The friend being Jake? She wouldn't say. She's refused to answer any more questions without a lawyer. Of course she had. I thanked the detective and ended the call, frustration boiling over. Jess was smart enough not to directly implicate herself while still helping Jake torment us. That evening, we had to return to our house to collect more clothes and important documents. We went with a police escort, just to be safe. The officer waited in his patrol car while Sam and I hurried inside. Everything looked normal at first. Then I noticed small things out of place. A photo frame slightly askew. Books on the shelf rearranged. Nothing obviously disturbed, but enough to know someone had been inside. "Don't touch anything," the officer said when we called him in. He called for additional units to process the scene. The back door lock had been expertly picked. No signs of forced entry. Nothing was missing, but the violation of our space felt worse than any theft. In the nursery, we'd started preparing. Someone had left a teddy bear we didn't recognize, positioned carefully in the crib. Crime scene techs dusted for fingerprints and took photos. They found shoe prints in the backyard that didn't match ours. The teddy bear was bagged as evidence. We couldn't stay in the house after that. The sense of safety we'd built there was shattered. We moved back to the hotel while figuring out next steps. The following morning brought another shock. A coworker texted me screenshots from a parenting forum where someone using the name Concerned Father 84 was posting about his ex-girlfriend who's keeping his baby from him. The post included details only Jake would know, mixed with his delusions. He was asking for legal advice on how to establish paternity and gain custody when the mother was being influenced by a dangerous man. Several forum members had offered sympathy and advice before others pointed out inconsistencies in his story. The post painted me as mentally unstable, claiming I'd been hospitalized multiple times. I hadn't. And that my family was concerned about my ability to care for a baby. They weren't. Sam spent hours reporting the post to forum moderators and documenting everything. We were building a thick file of evidence, but it felt like playing whack-a-mole. Every time we addressed one threat, two more popped up. My OB called that afternoon. I wanted to alert you that we had someone call claiming to be your insurance company, asking about your upcoming delivery date and which hospital you'd chosen. We didn't provide any information, but I thought you should know. The calls were getting bolder. Jake, or someone helping him, was trying every avenue to get information about when and where I'd be most vulnerable. That night, unable to sleep again, I made a decision. I called my aunt who lived 3 states away. She'd been following the situation through my mother and immediately offered her help. Come stay with me, she said. You can deliver at the hospital here. No one would think to look for you this far away. Sam and I discussed it for hours. Leaving felt like running away, but staying felt increasingly dangerous. We had 2 months until my due date. 2 months of this escalating harassment, never knowing when Jake might appear or what he might do. We decided to go, but first, we needed to tie up loose ends. Work arrangements, medical record transfers, packing what we needed. We gave ourselves a week to prepare, telling no one except my aunt about our plans. 3 days into preparations, I got a call from Linda again. Her voice was shaking. Sarah, I'm so sorry to call again, but Jake's missing. He left the house 2 days ago and we haven't seen him since. His car is gone, and he took his father's hunting equipment. Hunting equipment? Camping gear, but also some knives. His father's collection. I've called the police, but since he's an adult and hasn't committed a crime, my hand instinctively went to my belly. Linda, do you have any idea where he might go? He's been talking about bringing his family home. Sarah, I'm scared of what he might do, to himself or to others. After I hung up, Sam immediately called the detective on our case. She assured us they'd issue a BOLO, be on the lookout for Jake and his vehicle, but we all knew how big the city was, how easy it would be for him to hide. We moved up our departure timeline. Sam took emergency leave from work while I made hurried arrangements with my job for remote work. We packed only essentials, planning to have the rest shipped later. The night before we were set to leave, I made one last attempt to reach Pete. I called from the hotel room phone, knowing he wouldn't recognize the number. Pete, it's me. Don't hang up. Jake's missing and he took weapons. His mother is worried he might hurt someone. You need to keep Jess away from him if he contacts her. Sarah. His voice was tired. Jess and I broke up yesterday. I found messages between her and Jake on her tablet. You were right. She's been feeding him information this whole time. Not just about you, about your friends, your routine, everything. Relief and sadness washed over me simultaneously. I'm sorry, Pete. No, I'm sorry. I should have believed you. I was so caught up in, I don't know, trying to keep everyone happy. I didn't want to see what was right in front of me. Where's Jess now? She packed her things and left. Said she was going to stay with a friend. Sarah, in those messages, Jake's not well. He's completely detached from reality, and Jess was encouraging it, telling him he had rights to the baby, that you were the one being unreasonable. We're leaving town, I admitted, tomorrow, just until the baby's born and we can figure out a safer situation. Good. That's good. Sarah, when this is over, when you're safe, can we try to fix this? I know I messed up, but you're my sister. Let's focus on getting through this first, I said softly. Pete, if Jake or Jess contact you, please call the police immediately. I will, I promise. And Sarah, I love you. Be safe. The next morning, we loaded our car in the pre-dawn darkness. Sam did a thorough check of the vehicle while I waited in the hotel lobby with our bags. Everything seemed clear. We were just pulling out of the parking lot when Sam's phone rang. It was the detective. We found Jake's car, she said, her voice tense. It was parked 2 blocks from your house. We're searching the area now, but there's no sign of him. 2 blocks from our house. He'd been that close while we'd been preparing to leave. There's more, the detective continued. We arrested Jess an hour ago. She was trying to board a flight. When we searched her luggage, we found printed copies of your medical records, ultrasound photos, and a detailed timeline of your pregnancy. She also had a burner phone with texts to Jake sent over the last 48 hours. What did the texts say? She was telling him you were planning to leave town. She didn't know where, but she knew you were going. The last message was sent yesterday evening. My blood ran cold. Jake knew we were running. He knew we were leaving today. We're increasing patrols in your area, the detective said, but I recommend you continue with your plans to leave. The sooner, the better. Sam pressed harder on the accelerator as we merged onto the highway. I kept checking the mirrors, looking for any car that might be following us. Every vehicle that stayed behind us for more than a few exits made my heart race. 3 hours into the drive, we stopped for gas in a small town. Sam filled the tank while I used the restroom. When I came out, I saw him talking to a state trooper by our car. Ma'am, the trooper said as I approached, your husband flagged me down. Given your situation, I'm happy to escort you to the county line. Make sure you're not being followed. The gesture nearly made me cry. We followed the patrol car for the next hour, feeling safer than we had in weeks. At the county line, the trooper wished us well and turned back. We drove for 12 hours total, stopping only for necessities. By evening, we were pulling into my aunt's driveway in a quiet suburban neighborhood. She met us at the door with tears and hugs. You're safe now, she said, ushering us inside. Everything's going to be okay. But even as I settled into the guest room, surrounded by the warmth of family and miles from Jake, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Jake was still out there, still delusional, still convinced that my baby was his. That night, as Sam slept beside me, I placed my hands on my belly and felt the baby kick. In 2 months, this child would be born. Would we still be hiding then? Would we ever be able to go home? My phone, which I'd kept off during the drive, buzzed with accumulated messages when I finally turned it on. Most were from concerned friends and family, but one stood out, a text from an unknown number, sent just hours after we'd left. You can't run forever. A father has rights. See you soon. I showed Sam in the morning. He immediately called the detective, who confirmed the number was from another burner phone. They were trying to trace where it had been purchased. My aunt, a retired nurse, helped me find a new OB and get my records transferred. The staff at the new clinic were understanding when I explained the situation, putting additional security measures on my file. Days passed quietly. We established a routine, morning walks in my aunt's neighborhood, afternoon preparations for the baby, evenings spent planning our next steps. Sam worked remotely while I tried to focus on staying calm for the baby's sake, but the peace was shattered a week later. My mother called, hysterical. Sarah, Jake showed up at my house. He was demanding to know where you were. I didn't open the door and I called the police, but he smashed my garden gnome against the window before they arrived. Are you okay? Is Dad with you? I'm fine, just shaken. Your father's here. The police took Jake into custody, but honey, he looked terrible, like he hadn't slept or eaten in days. He kept screaming about his baby, about his rights. At least he was in custody, but I knew it wouldn't last. Without new charges beyond property damage and violating the protective order, he'd likely be released again soon. The detective called to confirm Jake's arrest. He had maps in his car, she told me, printed routes to various cities. He's been searching for you, but don't worry, he has no idea where you actually are. Still, we increased our precautions. My aunt installed new locks and a security system. Sam and I never went anywhere alone. We varied our routes and routines, always watching for anything unusual. 2 weeks passed without incident. I started to relax slightly, focusing on preparing for the baby. We set up a small nursery in my aunt's guest room, attended birthing classes at the local hospital, and tried to maintain some normalcy. Then Pete called with news that made my stomach drop. Jake's out, he said. His parents posted bail. But Sarah, there's something else. The police searched Jess's apartment more thoroughly. They found a journal where she'd been documenting everything about your pregnancy. She had plans written out. Plans to help Jake take the baby after it was born. What kind of plans? Detailed ones. Hospital shift changes, security procedures, even notes about which nurses seemed sympathetic to Jake's situation. Sarah, I think she was planning to help him kidnap the baby. I sank onto the couch, feeling lightheaded. Sam took the phone from my shaking hands. Pete, it's Sam. We need copies of everything the police found. Can you help with that? While they talked, I tried to process this new information. It wasn't just harassment anymore. There was an actual plan to take my baby. The delusions had evolved into concrete preparation for kidnapping. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every scenario played through my mind. What if Jake found us? What if he and Jess had other accomplices? What if they were already here, watching, waiting for me to give birth? The stress was affecting my health. At my next prenatal appointment, my blood pressure was elevated. The doctor prescribed rest and stress management, but how could I manage stress when I was being hunted? Sam took over most of the communication with lawyers and police. We were building a strong case, but I worried it wouldn't matter if Jake found us first. His delusions were so strong, so fixed. In his mind, he was a father being kept from his child. That made him dangerous in ways that were hard to predict. 3 weeks before my due date, we got word that Jess had agreed to a plea deal. She'd testify about her involvement in exchange for reduced charges. Her lawyer claimed she'd been manipulated by Jake, that she genuinely believed she was helping reunite a family. The detective seemed optimistic. With her testimony, we can charge Jake with conspiracy, stalking, and attempted kidnapping. That's serious time. But Jake would need to be found first. He'd disappeared again after making bail, and even his parents claimed not to know where he was. I tried to focus on the positive. We were safe. We had support. The law was on our side. But as my due date approached, the fear grew stronger. Would Jake somehow know when I went into labor? Would he appear at the hospital? Would I spend the first moments of my child's life in fear? My aunt tried to reassure me. The hospital knows the situation. Security is aware. You'll have a safe room, and they won't allow any visitors you haven't pre-approved. It helped, but only slightly. Jake had proven resourceful in his delusions, and somewhere out there, he was planning, plotting, convinced that my baby was his. As I lay in bed that night, feeling the baby move inside me, I made a promise. I'll keep you safe, I whispered. No matter what it takes, you'll never have to fear him. But even as I said the words, I wondered how long we'd have to run, how long we'd have to hide, when, if ever, we'd be able to live without looking over our shoulders. The baby kicked in response, and I tried to take it as a sign of strength. We'd made it this far. We'd make it through whatever came next. The contractions started at 3 a.m., 2 weeks before my due date. Sam bolted upright when I gasped, clutching my belly. We'd prepared for this moment, but the timing caught us off guard. My aunt drove us to the hospital while Sam called ahead to alert security about our situation. The staff whisked us straight to a private room on a restricted floor. 2 security guards were posted outside. Between contractions, I watched the door obsessively. Every footstep in the hallway made my heart race. Sam squeezed my hand, reminding me to breathe. The nurses checked my dilation. Still early stages. Hours crawled by. The pain intensified. Around noon, the head nurse came in with a concerned expression. She explained that a man had tried to enter the maternity ward claiming to be my husband. Security had intercepted him at the main desk. He'd become agitated when they couldn't find my name in the system. We'd registered under an alias for safety. My whole body tensed. Sam immediately called the detective while the nurse increased security protocols. They moved us to a different room as a precaution. The detective called back within minutes. The man at the desk wasn't Jake. It was a confused father looking for his wife who'd gotten the hospital wrong. False alarm, but it showed how on edge we all were. Labor progressed slowly. By evening, I was exhausted and only 6 centimeters dilated. The epidural helped with pain, but not with fear. Sam never left my side, even when I squeezed his hand hard enough to leave marks. My phone, silenced but visible, lit up with a text from Pete. Heard from Mom you might be in labor. Jake's been spotted in Arizona. You're safe. Arizona. Hundreds of miles from where we actually were. Some of the tension eased from my shoulders. The baby arrived at 2:47 a.m. after 24 hours of labor. A healthy girl, screaming her lungs out. The moment they placed her on my chest, everything else faded. Sam cried openly, kissing both our foreheads. We named her Emma. She had Sam's nose and my stubborn chin. Perfect tiny fingers that wrapped around mine with surprising strength. The hospital maintained strict security for our entire stay. Only pre-approved visitors could enter. My aunt, my parents who'd driven up, and Sam's family. Pete wasn't on the list. That hurt, but I couldn't risk it. Not yet. On our second day, Linda called. Jake had been arrested in Arizona after a disturbance at a shopping mall. He'd been approaching pregnant women, demanding to know if they were me. One woman's husband had called police when Jake grabbed her arm. This time, with multiple witnesses and assault charges, he wouldn't make bail easily. The detective confirmed they were pursuing federal charges for crossing state lines to stalk and harass. Combined with Jess's testimony about the kidnapping plot, Jake faced serious prison time. We brought Emma home to my aunt's house 3 days later. The nursery we'd hastily assembled welcomed our daughter. Sam took 2 weeks off work to help with the adjustment. My aunt cooked meals and offered experienced guidance. Breastfeeding proved challenging. Emma was a voracious voracious eater but had trouble latching. A lactation consultant visited daily, patiently working with us. Sleep became a distant memory. Sam and I took shifts, stumbling through diaper changes and feedings in a haze of exhaustion. 2 weeks after Emma's birth, Jess's trial began. The prosecutor needed my testimony via video link. Seeing her on screen, orange jumpsuit replacing her usual stylish clothes, stirred complicated emotions. She looked smaller, defeated. I testified about the baby shower incident, the leaked information, finding her rental car outside our hotel. The defense attorney tried to paint her as another victim of Jake's manipulation, but the evidence was overwhelming. Her detailed journal entries about helping Jake reclaim his child were particularly damning. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit kidnapping, stalking, harassment. The judge sentenced her to 5 years with possibility of parole in 3. Pete attended every day of the trial. He sent me one text after the verdict: "I'm sorry for everything." Jake's trial was scheduled for the following month. His public defender was pushing for an insanity plea, arguing he couldn't be held responsible due to his schizophrenia. The prosecutor assured us that even if successful, he'd be committed to a secure psychiatric facility for years. Meanwhile, we settled into a routine with Emma. She started sleeping in 3-hour stretches, which felt like a miracle. Her first real smile came during a diaper change, causing Sam to whoop loud enough to wake the neighbors. My maternity leave was running out. Working remotely from my aunt's house was possible, but we needed to make long-term decisions. Our house back home sat empty. The nursery we'd started still half-finished. The mortgage payments continued regardless. Sam flew back for a weekend to assess the situation. He changed the locks, installed a comprehensive security system, and met with a realtor about possibly selling. The house felt tainted now, he reported. Too many bad memories. While he was gone, I took Emma for her 1-month checkup. The pediatrician pronounced her perfectly healthy, gaining weight appropriately. In the waiting room afterward, another mother struck up conversation. Her daughter was 2 weeks older than Emma. We exchanged numbers, promising to meet for coffee. It felt strange, making mom friends in a city where I was essentially hiding. But Emma needed normalcy, even if our situation was anything but normal. Jake's trial began on a Tuesday. I testified again, this time in person. Sam stayed with Emma at my aunt's house while I flew back for the day. Seeing Jake in court was jarring. He'd lost weight, his hair grown long and unkempt. He stared at me throughout my testimony, occasionally muttering to himself. When asked about the baby shower incident, Jake suddenly stood up, shouting that I'd stolen his child. The bailiffs restrained him as he struggled, screaming about his rights as a father. The judge ordered him removed from the courtroom. His outburst actually helped our case. The jury saw firsthand how detached from reality he was. They found him guilty but mentally ill, meaning he'd serve his sentence in a psychiatric facility with mandatory treatment. The sentence was 15 years minimum before possibility of release. The judge cited the planned kidnapping and pattern of escalation as factors. Jake would need to demonstrate sustained mental health improvement and lack of danger before any consideration of release. Linda approached me outside the courthouse. She looked aged, worn down by her son's actions. She apologized again, saying she wished she'd pushed harder for treatment years ago. I told her it wasn't her fault. Mental illness was complicated, and Jake had refused help for so long. Flying back to my aunt's house, I felt a weight lifting. 15 years. Emma would be in high school before Jake could potentially be free. We had time to build a life without constantly looking over our shoulders. Sam had news when I returned. His company had approved a permanent remote position. We could stay with my aunt or move anywhere we wanted. The freedom felt overwhelming after months of feeling trapped. We decided to stay put for now. My aunt adored having us there, and we'd found a good pediatrician and support system. Emma was thriving, already holding her head up during tummy time. Pete reached out again, asking if he could meet Emma. I struggled with the decision for days. He'd chosen Jess over my safety, but he'd also realized his mistake. Sam left the choice to me. I agreed to a meeting in a public place, a busy cafe downtown. Pete arrived alone, looking nervous. When he saw Emma in her carrier, his face crumpled. He asked permission before gently touching her tiny hand. We talked for an hour. He updated me on our extended family, shared how he'd been attending therapy to understand how he'd enabled Jess's behavior. He didn't ask for immediate forgiveness, just a chance to slowly rebuild trust. I told him we could try. Supervised visits for now, building from there. Emma deserved to know her uncle, but I needed to protect her first. Pete understood, grateful for even this small opening. 3 months after Emma's birth, we made our first trip back home, just a day visit to collect belongings and meet with the realtor. The house sold within a week to a young couple excited about the neighborhood. I hoped they'd create better memories there. We used the sale proceeds to buy a small house 2 towns over from my aunt, close enough for regular visits but our own space to build a life. Emma's nursery was the first room we decorated, soft yellows and greens with woodland creatures on the walls. Sam returned to the office part-time while I worked from home. We found a wonderful daycare for the days we both needed to work. Emma adapted quickly, charming the staff with her gummy smiles. The first time I ventured out without constantly checking behind me felt surreal. Grocery shopping became just grocery shopping, not a stealth mission. Emma and I joined a mommy and me class where no one knew our history. Pete visited monthly, slowly earning back trust. He brought toys and books, respecting every boundary I set. Watching him with Emma, I saw glimpses of the brother I'd grown up with. 6 months after the trials ended, I finally stopped jumping at unexpected noises. Emma was crawling, exploring every corner of our new home with determination. Sam baby-proofed obsessively, patting every sharp corner. We hosted our first gathering, a small barbecue for Emma's half-birthday. Friends from our mommy group, some of Sam's co-workers, my aunt, normal people living normal lives. Emma smeared cake all over her face while everyone laughed. That night, after guests left and Emma slept peacefully in her crib, Sam and I sat on our back porch. The stars were visible here, away from city lights. We didn't talk about Jake or Jess or the months of fear. Instead, we planned Emma's first birthday party, debating themes and guest lists. Life had found its rhythm. Doctor appointments, play dates, work deadlines, date nights when my aunt babysat. The hypervigilance faded into background awareness. We'd never forget what happened, but it no longer defined every moment. Emma took her first steps at 11 months, toddling between Sam and me with delighted squeals. I recorded it on my phone, sharing the video with family. Even Pete got a copy, responding with heart emojis and tears of joy. The restraining order against Jake remained permanent. Annual reviews confirmed he was receiving treatment but still fixated on delusions about me. His doctors reported slow progress. Jess had been transferred to minimum security, reportedly taking college courses. Sometimes I wondered if we'd ever truly feel safe. Then Emma would laugh, or Sam would make a silly face, or my aunt would call with gossip from her book club, and I'd realize we already were. Safety wasn't the absence of threat, but the presence of love, support, and determination to live fully despite our past. Emma's first birthday arrived with fanfare. The princess theme might have been cliché, but her joy made it perfect. Pete came, bringing a handmade wooden toy chest he'd spent months crafting. Watching Emma toddle around in her puffy pink dress, cake in her hair, and surrounded by people who loved her, I felt the last piece of fear dissolve. We'd survived. More than that, we'd built something beautiful from the ashes of terror. Emma would grow up knowing she was protected, loved, and worth every battle we'd fought to keep her safe. That night, I tucked her into the crib, whispering the same promise I'd made while pregnant, but now it felt different. Not a desperate vow made in fear, but a simple truth. She was safe. We'd made sure of it.